welcome back to another edition of Movies That Move We. So today we are talking about Shirley, which if you haven't seen it already, run to Netflix and check it out. It's the story of Shirley Chisholm, at least the part of her life when she ran for president. Beyond her running for president, what did you know about her prior to
knew
this?
absolutely nothing about Shirley Chisholm. I'm just going to be honest.
I didn't know much more than she ran for president.
And that was probably because it was, not during my time, so I just didn't... One, it wasn't during my time, and two, they didn't really teach this in school, so...
Well, it wasn't during my time. She was still in politics, throughout my teen and adult years, but outside of hearing, oh, she was the first Black woman to run to be president, that was about the only reference, which is kind of sad. They need to talk about her a little bit more. They need to talk about a lot of Black figures who did the work during and following the height of the civil rights movement. So let's talk about the movie, how this came together. This was something Regina King wanted to do for a long time. Finally came together. John Ridley wrote and directed the film. Regina and her sister Raina, who played her sister in the film, they were two of the producers on this as well. And I think she said that I have to go back and look, but I think she said her son Ian had some involvement with the movie also. And for those of you who don't know, Regina King's son passed away, I think shortly after they wrapped the film. So when you start the movie, it highlights what was going on when she started her career as a congresswoman in 1968. At that point, there were 435 people in Congress. 11 were women. 5 were Black people, and she was the only Black woman. In 1968, how do I want to say this? In 1968, I think it was bold for a woman to attempt to run for presidency. People were still uncomfortable with women even being in politics.
I was going to say, wouldn't they be uncomfortable with them even voting? Because,
Well, it wasn't so long that they got the right to vote.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. It didn't seem like a long time even went by for that.
Also, you have to think, they highlighted this in the film, 1968 was the year that 18-year-olds could start voting. So that was a large swatch of
it was kind of, when I was watching it, I was kind of again, dates and stuff like that, I was sitting here wow, that actually seems pretty progressive for its time, because it was just a few years before that, there was a bunch of riots and stuff going on, marches, people fighting for segregation. So the idea of them having a Black woman in politics and in Congress, that's a big thing.
And stuff was still going on because Huey Newton was in this film, but we also know members of the Black Panther Party were shot and killed within this time period as well. So there was still a lot of boots to the ground work.
Yeah, and I even thought it was kind of enlightening too that they showed when they took the picture of all the Congress people and she was the one there, that after everything was done, it wasn't like there was anybody sitting there celebrating her other than her husband. It was just kind of okay, yeah, that's it. And even the guys that were there, it wasn't like they were, a bunch of them were hey, yeah, we're so happy to have you here, anything like that. So
yeah, one of the opening scenes is her walking through the halls, and one of the congressmen walks up to her real smug, and he's like, so you're making $46,500 just like me. And she basically told him to evaporate. So it was still, not only was that a barb at her because she was a woman, but because she was a black woman making probably not as much as a white man in that space, but definitely for that time a substantial amount of money. So just to get back to women being allowed to vote, to put it in perspective, she was born in November of 1924. She would have been 100 this year. November of 1924, and Congress passed a law in June 1919 for women to vote. It was ratified in 1920. So just a few years before she was born, women were allowed to vote. Okay, and here she was, 1969, saying, all right, I'm going to run for president. If anybody can do it, I can do it. And it was a bold move.
And it's crazy because even like, it's unfortunate to say, but it's like even black men were like, you're not going to be able to do this, or you're not going to be able to pull this off. And it's just kind of like, it's so hard to be a woman. And I was watching a show the other day that was kind of saying that it's so hard to be a woman, but it's even harder to be a black woman, because it's like you have two stigmas on you at that point. Yeah. So to do that in that time period, that's why I was saying, I'm sitting here watching, I'm like, this is so progressive, because like I would not even think of a woman in that time period trying to like run for such a big role. Like I would never think that. And that's why I was shocked, because this is something, again, they don't teach us in school. Like, I didn't know that she ran for president at all. Like, I did not know that.
Yeah. And I think, gosh, I was still in elementary school when Geraldine Ferraro ran. And I think she wasn't a black woman, but I think she was the second woman to run for presidency. Flopped. But she paved the way for other women to at least say, I can do it. She kind of created the framework, if you will, to just go out there and go for it. And the thing that I kept thinking about while watching the movie was, if it wasn't for her, Barack Obama probably would not have happened when he happened. Kamala Harris would not be sitting so close to the presidency right now. And I'll tell you something, my belief is this is part of the reason why people are going so much harder about Joe Biden's age than they are that other guy's age. Because if, God forbid, if he should pass away, the White House belongs to Kamala. And folks will eat their own kidney if she gets into that seat, because take the skin color off of it. They don't want a woman sitting there.
I'm telling you, while we were watching this, what I'll say overall, and this might be this is just an overview of how I felt about everything after I watched this film. It's just like, women are just viewed as like kind of more emotional. So it's like automatically, especially in a role of power, it's like people don't want to see, there are women that don't want to see other women in that position. So it's like, and it's so unfortunate, because just off of life experience, I just got to be honest, I have seen men be so much more emotional than women in my lifetime. Like, just, they're so much more emotional. So it's kind of shocking that, it is a thing, but it's a thing. It's like, you take care of home and you handle so many things, you juggle so many different things, but we don't think that you're fit. You might be too emotional. You might get too hysterical if you run for office, or if you take a role.
You'll have a fit of PMS and hit the red button, and it's like, you dudes are out here hitting the red button for less. Come on now.
And that's my point. It's just like, I feel like, And even with her, it's like, I feel like she made so many moves that were kind of like outside of the box for people. And I feel like if she were a man, it wouldn't be viewed so radically or so like, oh my God, like, why is she doing that kind of thing?
Well, even when you're talking about other women supporting, one of the things that she said in the film was, where are the white women? How come these women who are all about women's empowerment, women getting their rights, why aren't they here?
And honestly,
we saw the same thing. I think when with Hillary Clinton, when she ran, you know, she was talking about all the things that she would do, and she wants to unify and, you know, representation, and every woman is a part of this. And black women were like, where do we fit? We're talking about a lot of stuff, but where do we fit? And in the film, the thing that kind of spoke to what kind of support she wasn't getting, her own sister didn't want to support her. She was like, you're crazy. People are talking about you. They're saying all of these things about you. You're not representing the family well. Why are you doing this?
And that's my thing is like, I even feel like now you can kind of see it starting to happen where, I'm trying to say this delicately, but I guess I just have to say it this way. But where white women are starting to kind of try to be advocates for all women, including the minorities, and trying to unify a little bit. But I still feel like it's a challenge now. The same challenge as she asked the question of where are all the white women, like, when I need their support, it's kind of the same thing now. And what's so unfortunate is I feel like I just said before, I feel like same with what you said about her sister. It's just kind of like, as a whole, I think there are certain women that are just kind of like, they can't wrap their head around that idea of it actually working out. Even if they want that to happen, or if they really would love to see a woman in power, it's like, girl, you might as well just give that up, because it's not going to happen. We're in a man's world. You're never going to be in that role, or it's going to be next to impossible to get in that role. It's like we've been so conditioned to the point where we can't even like aspire for that.
I think, like you said, I can see the needle moving like this.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, but you can see it trying to, but it's like, it's just not, it's not happening.
The thing is, the fact that we have a female vice president, I'm not even talking about where her politics are, who she benefits. I'm not talking about anything like that. I'm talking about the fact that she was even taken seriously enough to be a running mate and to win the presidency and be vice president alongside a very well-known male president, white male at that. That's the beginning. I think we'll see more female vice presidents before we see outright, all right, this person, you know, ran from the very beginning, skipped the vice presidency piece, and boom, there she is, she's president. You know, I think it's still going to be a while yet before we see it. What are some of the other things that we have? One of the people that she raised, if you will, was Congresswoman Barbara Lee, who was played by Christina Jackson. She met her as a college student. Barbara Lee was a single mom, and she encouraged her because, again, that was the first year that 18-year-olds could vote. The voting age was brought down to 18. And she said to her, well, you want to affect change, do you vote? And Barbara Lee was like, no, that's something for them people over there. I'm paraphrasing. That's something for them people over there. My vote isn't going to count. And Shirley told her, little girl. She liked using that phrase a lot. Little girl.
It has to be an island thing.
It has, because I swear that was my name for the longest time. She told her, you have to vote. and she invited her to work for free on her campaign. And I think in that space, Barbara Lee learned a lot. And to this day, she is still in politics. Now, will she ever run for president? Learning what she learned at Shirley Chisholm's feet? I don't know. But she is still, I think, where is she? She's a California District 12. Yeah, she was elected in 1998 for District 9. It's now the 12th district. I believe she still is Congresswoman there. But overall, this film was a high level telling of her run for presidency. It doesn't cover all of her life. It doesn't talk about, her being born in New York and raised in the Bahamas by her grandmother.
I kind of wish that they did that a little bit. And I even felt kind of like that about Ruffin when we did that one.
Rustin.
I just kind of, I'm sorry. Why did I say Ruffin?
That was a 5 Heartbeats. We're talking about.
Just cut that out.
Something different.
Anyway, when we did Rustin, I kind of felt the same way. Like, I just felt like, I think even if we saw flashes, even if it wasn't like, okay, we're going to go from childhood to teenage adulthood to when she actually was in this situation, I feel like it would have been kind of helpful to kind of maybe see some flashbacks of her childhood, because even though it was briefly mentioned, it would have been kind of cool to see the interaction between like her and her dad and her other siblings and her upbringing, because I didn't know either. I've heard her name, but I didn't know anything about her in depth until I watched this movie. But I didn't know that her family originated from the Caribbean. Like, I didn't know that. Mm-hmm. And, it's kind of like all of those things combined, I think it would have kind of helped tell the story a little bit better.
Yeah, and I mentioned to Zany, I was like, every time I heard, saw a clip of her on TV with her speaking, I always noticed she had a very distinct way of speaking. It didn't hit my ear as Caribbean at all. And I even said to her, there were a lot of Black leaders who spoke with a very distinct accent. Was it because they were from another part of the world, or was it, I read it as they were just being very articulate in order to be taken seriously?
Well, when I read online, because I was like looking up facts about her and stuff like that. Honestly, I was looking for what was her favorite meal, because the whole movie she's eating McDonald's, and she's even late to meetings, so she's eating McDonald's. So I'm like, what is this woman's deal? But anyway, I was looking up facts about her, and they mentioned that she had an almost British accent because she like went to a certain school where that's how they kind of like taught them to speak or something like that.
So that's one of the things you have to think. A number of the islands were, and some still are, colonies to the crown, to Britain. And so when even in Jamaica, when you hear the newscasts, the broadcasters, they sound more British. You're not hearing the Jamaican patois that you'll hear on the street. They have a very, like I said, distinct accent. It ain't quite British, but it's not that lilt that you hear Caribbean people speak with. So that's one of the things that I noticed. Again, didn't even hit my ear as, oh, it has some British intonations to it. It was just, I'm going to do it now. I am making an effort to speak very clearly so that you won't think I am ignorant. That's kind of how the pronunciation, and again, there were a lot of Black people that I noticed who were part of the civil rights movement who made it a point to articulate like that. So it didn't strike me unusually that she did it, but I was surprised to find out that was part of her Caribbean.
But it's funny you say that, because even like African and some Caribbean, if they were like colonized by like the French or the British, you can hear that in like the way they speak sometimes.
Well, like I said, all I ever heard was clips of her speaking publicly I don't know if there are any clips of her just, I haven't looked them up, just sitting down and having a general conversation.
In the movie, it kind of seems like, she might have, I don't know if she watched interviews. I don't know if she talked to people that, like, I don't know how she did her research or, like, how she got more of that emphasis on how she behaved. But in the movie, it kind of seemed like she would kind of go back and forth. So she was in a more, like, formal setting where she was doing, like, speeches or doing political type stuff. That more, like, enunciated accent would kind of come out.
Mm-hmm.
But then, like, if she was kind of around people she knew and stuff like that,
she'd let it,
the
relax.
island part, you can kind of hear it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, that might have been what it was. Maybe because we got a lot of clips of her, like, doing more political things. That's what we're hearing.
Mm-hmm.
But in the movie, I think Regina King did a good job with kind of like, okay, well, when she's around family and friends, that Caribbean side comes out. Because when she cussed the guy out, like, it came right out. And I was like, okay, she's from the Caribbean. Like,
she said, the dog dead. I said, oh. Okay.
I was like, okay,
yes,
I hear it now.
Yes, ma'am, I understand. But again, one of the comments that I read on IMDb, was one of the well, it's the only comment on there at the moment. They didn't feel like this really got into the story of Shirley Chisholm. They said there was a lot that was fictionalized. I don't know what was from what wasn't. But they said there was a lot that was fictionalized, and they feel like the audience may be robbed of what the real story. One of the things I can say, and I noticed they said it a lot, or the character of Shirley said it a lot, was that she is running to be an example to other women. And I'm like, you mean you put all that energy, that time, that fight, all of that into running just to be an example? It almost sounds like you didn't expect to win. But at the same time, they would show her doing things and having full conversation where she's like, I'm not stopping. I'm riding this to the end. I'm going to win.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was more, if there's anything that might not be quite true or accurate, that's probably it. I think there's knowing that you're doing something big and being aware that, oh, this thing that I'm doing right now, it's going to inspire other people. People are going to see it and say, well, if she can do it, I can give it a try, kind of thing. But they were really driving home, okay, this has opened the door for so many other people. The movie moves quickly. It doesn't waste any time getting into her being a part of Congress, and then it jumps immediately to her saying, I'm going to run for president today. And it kind of takes off from there. So I think that's probably one of the things that the person who wrote that review was kind of speaking to, that it just...
Because if you're somebody that, like, you like biopics, you like learning people's history, I'm not gonna lie, I think my opinion of the movie is it was kind of like a little bit dragged out, or a little bit like, okay, I'm losing interest, because, like, for example, I'm not a big politics person. Like, I'm not interested in it to that extent where I know the houses and all it's like, but if I had that little bit of, like, I guess, background on her personal life and all of that, I think it would kind of help me to stay interested, but also kind of gain a little bit more information about, because I've even watched certain movies that might not be something that I'm really interested in, but because they put that little bit of personable information in there, and they even go as far as kind of like explaining how things work, like, within the character, it kind of helps you to focus on it more and, like, better understand. But, like, if you're somebody that's a history buff and you know about all this stuff, you might enjoy it and be like, oh, I got enough information. But to me, I just kind of felt like at a certain point, I was kind of like, okay, I get it. Like, this is nice.
Right.
I get it.
The thing that I love that they did with the movie, at the end, Barbara Lee came on, and she talked about a little bit about what was done in the following years. And then put up some pictures of, let's see, who was it? Robert Gottlieb, and there was somebody else. Robert Gottlieb.
Arthur Hartwick, I think, her husband, her second husband.
No.
They did put that up there.
Did they?
Yeah, at the very end, they put that saying that, like, she divorced her husband that was in the movie, her first husband, and then she married Terrence Howard's character, which was Arthur Hartwick.
Okay.
They did put that at the end.
That's right, they did, because they had that wedding picture. And they talked about a little bit about Wesley McDonald Halter. They called him Mac in the film. He was played by the late Lance Riddick, and the film was dedicated to him at the end. But they kind of went through and talked about some of those people, just a few black and white pictures. Mm-hmm. So in all, I would say, if you want a little bit more information, you want to get an idea of what it was like at that time for a black woman to run for office, this is a good place to start. Personally, I hope that somebody decides to do an in-depth documentary and talk to some of the people that were there. Again, she would have been 100 years old this year. A lot of these people have already passed away, and she didn't have any kids. I don't think her sister's still alive. I don't know if her sister is still alive.
No, she passed.
She did?
Because remember you showed me the pictures of, like, her at the memorial service or something?
No, she was there to receive her sister's flag at her sister's funeral. Muriel received Shirley's flag at the funeral, but I don't think I could find anything about if or when her sister passed away. But again, neither here nor there. I would love to see a documentary, not of the general time period with an honorable mention that she ran for office, but something a little more in-depth that really delves into the timeline, what kind of things challenged her, personal things that challenged and impacted some of the decisions that she may have had to make as far as running her campaign. In all, I don't think it was a horrible movie. I think it was a pretty good movie. It's a starting point if you know absolutely nothing about her to go down the rabbit hole a little bit. So I out of 10 points, I think I'd give this about an 8. What about you?
I think I'll give it about an 8 too. Okay. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's a wrap for Shirley. That's all we have for today. But join us next week. I don't think we've decided on the next movie, have we?
I don't think we decided on exactly which one we were doing, but I think we had a couple options.
What's coming up?
I mentioned water. Okay. Or I'm sorry, I said water. Waves. Mm-hmm. And then I also mentioned Intergalactic. That was the one that Kid Cudi did.
We need time to watch that because that's a whole series. And at some point, I do want to.
Intergalactic's a movie.
Is it a movie?
Yeah, it's not it's not a show.
Y'all, I tried watching it. It felt like a series. But
it's not a series. It's a movie. It's an animated movie, but it's like an adult film.
Okay. Not adult that way, but geared towards older citizens.
I didn't mean it like that.
I'm just clarifying because you say adult film and people are like,
oh, well, I'm saying like it's still an adult film as far as like animation, because it's an adult animation, because a lot of people will say animation, that's for kids, but no, it's for adults.
Okay. And one of the things that I do want to do, because y'all have heard me mention it so many times, I finally got my copy of Pearly Victorious. It's on Broadway right now, so I suspect that's why they finally released the movie. I got it on Blu-ray. They're not even putting this thing on streaming yet. I'm a little annoyed. I'm not going to lie. But that's one that I do want to cover at some point. So pay attention to the banners on our page on Facebook. We are Movies That Move We. On YouTube, look for our channel, Movies That Move We. Our page over there is called Media That Moves We. But look for the channel. And again, pay attention to the page. We'll let you know when the next one is coming up. We always post on a Sunday at 5 p.m. Tell your mama, tell your kids, and we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.